It was another day of deadly clashes between Palestinians and Israelis at the Gaza border, the so-called Green Line. Just a week ago, 17 Palestinians were killed, 1,600 wounded in a similar mass protest last Friday. Thousands converging on Gaza's border with Israel today to protest the long-standing blockade of the region. Numerous tent encampments set up a few hundred meters back from the 65-kilometer frontier. Families, children, and the elderly all gathering there. But some groups, mostly young men, venturing much closer to the fence, rolling tires and throwing stones toward Israeli troops. They set fire to mounds of tires, launching large plumes of black smoke to obstruct the view of Israeli troops. Israel says Hamas is using the protests as a cover to carry out border attacks. Its army releasing this video today showing what it says is a Palestinian man trying to cut through the fence into Israeli territory. Ahead of today's showdown, Israel vowing to prevent a breach of the fence at all costs. Israel's broad open fire rules drawing sharp criticism from human rights groups following last week's bloody crackdown. And today, the UN Human Rights Office calling on Israel to show restraint.
In policing the Green Line fence, Israeli security forces are required by international human rights law to respect the rights to peaceful assembly and expression and to use, to the extent possible, non-violent means to discharge their duties. In accordance with international human rights law, firearms may only be used in cases of extreme necessity as a last resort and in response to an imminent threat of death or risk of serious injury.
Palestinian medics reporting at least 7 Palestinian protesters shot and killed in today's clashes and dozens more wounded. Hamas rulers promised weeks of the right to return protests up until May 15th. That day marking 70 years since 750,000 Palestinians were expelled from their villages and towns by Israeli forces in 1948. Former South African President Jacob Zuma publicly proclaiming his innocence after a court appearance today in Durban. Hundreds of supporters attended the rally. The 75-year-old faces 16 charges, including fraud, racketeering, and money laundering relating to a $2.5 billion arms deal. It was a short 15-minute appearance, and the case was adjourned until June 8th.